Revenge with Karen.
I knew the temperature had changed when they took my name off the weekly strategy agenda without telling me. Just blank space where Elizabeth workflow updates used to be. No email, no Slack message, no hey, just so you know. I found out when I joined the call and someone else was walking through my pipeline. My voice hovered in the Zoom void for 6 seconds before I killed the mic and just watched. Cold, quiet, surgical, like someone yanking a chair out from under you mid-sit and calling it restructuring. But that wasn't the first omen. The first one was smaller, dumber. A sticky note actually stuck to my monitor by a cheerful intern named Riley who didn't know better yet. It said, FYI payroll says your contract's old, like old. Not in the system. Riles, at the time, I laughed, shoved it in my drawer with the paper clips and peppermint wrappers, and figured it was just another admin glitch. We'd been through mergers, acquisitions, a rebrand, and one reorg that felt more like corporate cosplay than strategy. The fact that my contract was still in a manila folder somewhere felt oddly fitting. I'd been here 15 years, longer than the building's HVAC system, and I could tell when both were about to break down. Now, before I go further, let me ask you something. If you're still listening and haven't hit that follow button or clicked like, do it now. Not just because it helps this story reach someone else sitting in a gray cubicle, sipping a lukewarm Starbucks, wondering if they're going crazy, but because it lets the team know we're not yelling into the void. We see you, we've been you. Anyway, where were we? Right, the beginning of the end. I'd always been the reliable one, not flashy, not the one doing big TED-style presentations in all-hands meetings, just the one who got it done. Workflow automation, back-end ticket escalations, third-party audits. My fingerprints were on everything that made the company run, even if nobody ever saw them. I didn't complain when they cut the annual raises for strategic reinvestment. I didn't raise hell when my title got bumped from senior implementation lead to process optimization partner, which is just HR word salad for do more, earn the same. Then came him. Chase, new VP, Silicon Valley transplant with a jawline sharp enough to slice bread and the humility of a caffeinated toddler. He'd been there maybe 6 weeks when he announced during a department-wide meeting that legacy team members should start documenting their processes for knowledge sharing. Translation: we want to download your brain before we throw you out like a used flash drive. I smiled and nodded and wrote nothing down. Instead, I started remembering things. Like that weird clause I negotiated back in 2011 after a bad exit from my previous job. I'd insisted, against HR's gentle pushback, on a line buried under the termination without cause section. Should the employee be dismissed without demonstrable cause, a structured severance review must be initiated, with escalating penalties for noncompliance. Exact wording still lived in my head like a poem you hate but can't forget. Most folks in the company had moved to a newer digital contract by now, flashier, standardized, sanitized. Mine, still analog, still valid, and still very, very useful. At the time, I didn't think I'd need it. I was indispensable, or so I thought. Chase didn't even bother pretending to value institutional knowledge. He called it corporate rot. Said things like, we need agility, not nostalgia, while sipping matcha and scheduling yoga breaks in the team calendar. Suddenly, every one-on-one I had with him turned into a lecture about adaptability and growth mindsets. I once tried to bring up a bug in our client automation queue. He redirected me to a TED talk about failure being a teacher. I redirected myself to Google Docs and started outlining my exit. It was subtle at first. Meetings rescheduled, then canceled, tasks reassigned. A project I had spearheaded for 3 fiscal quarters was suddenly being led by a junior analyst who thought SAW S meant sassy. I joined status updates only to find out decisions had already been made. Even my parking spot got moved, like a quiet little insult stapled to my Tuesday morning. And every time I asked HR for clarification, they smiled like I was asking for a unicorn. So I did what any middle-aged, undervalued, spreadsheet-slinging office warrior would do. I pulled out my manila folder, the one with the original ink-signed contract, notary stamp and all, and I started reading, not skimming, reading like my life depended on it, because it did. It happened on a Tuesday. Always a damn Tuesday. Not dramatic enough for Monday, not hopeful enough for Friday. I logged in for our weekly alignment call, expecting to run the update on the flagship project. Only to see my screen fill with a smiling, overcaffeinated 26-year-old named Tyler. Tyler, who still used the sparkle emoji unironically. Tyler, whose most impressive achievement until this moment was syncing Slack to his smartwatch. And there he was, screen sharing a roadmap I had written, word for word, down to the color coding. He even stumbled through acronyms I had coined 3 fiscal quarters ago. Didn't understand them, explain them. Just regurgitated what I'd built like he'd discovered sliced bread. I scanned the participant panel. Chase, the VP, leaned back in his little Hollywood Squares box, arms folded like a smug falcon. HR's rep, Dana, avoided eye contact. She'd suddenly developed a deep interest in her pens. I unmuted my mic. "Quick clarification," I said, as coolly as I could manage. I didn't realize there'd been a project ownership change. Silence. Tyler blinked like someone had unplugged him. Chase unmuted. "We're just trying a new approach. Letting different voices lead. Tyler's taking point from here. No warning, no discussion." Just like that, I was gutted from the thing I'd nurtured through 3 product launches, 2 platform pivots, and 1 sleepless weekend in the middle of a ransomware scare. Gone, like a ghost in her own spreadsheet. I didn't argue. I muted myself. Clicked leave meeting. I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. And for the first time in a long time, I felt it, that heat behind the eyes. The kind you get when you realize you've been slowly bleeding for months, but you were too proud or too loyal to notice. So I pulled out the box. It was a sad little thing. Dusty, dented on one corner, stuffed behind the space heater under my desk. Inside, a mess of old HR documents, performance reviews, scribbled notes from exit interviews I'd sat in on over the years. I wasn't hoarding, I was documenting. Always had. I just never thought I'd need to look at my contract again. But I found it, right where I'd left it, sealed in a plastic sleeve like an artifact. Flipping through it was like reading prophecy. So many lines were corporate nonsense, of course. But then there it was, under Section 8B. In the event of employment termination, without demonstrable cause, the company shall engage in a structured severance review, enforceable under prevailing state and federal labor laws still valid. Still enforceable. Still mine. I didn't feel powerful. I felt insulted, humiliated, that weird kind of ache where your pride and your paycheck collide. Because even if I won, it still meant someone saw me as disposable, as replaceable as a printer cartridge. The next morning, Dana from HR sent me a calendar invite. No context, just the subject line, catch up, feedback, and future planning. That's HREs for let's discuss your funeral without saying the word death. I didn't respond right away. I went back to the old PDFs I'd saved from our onboarding portal in 2011. I started highlighting, cross-referencing, taking notes. HR had overhauled the templates in 2017, streamlined, of course, but legacy contracts like mine were grandfathered in. Buried beneath 10 pounds of HR jargon was something beautiful, an arbitration clause, with timelines, with penalties, with teeth. I checked the most recent updates to the labor code just to be sure, still enforceable, no expiration, no loophole, and like some ancient librarian from a forgotten union, I began cataloging. Quietly, relentlessly, I scanned documents. I downloaded org charts. I made backups. 3 copies, one for the cloud, one on an encrypted drive, and one printed in triplicate and mailed to myself. Old school. Meanwhile, the company moved on like I'd already been buried. Chase began ending every meeting with thanks, team, and not once looking in my direction. I watched as Tyler butchered timelines, overlooked dependencies, and smiled through it all with the confidence of a toddler in traffic. HR said nothing. My workload didn't drop. They just stopped giving me credit. I didn't fight back, not yet. I smiled. I nodded. I even volunteered to support in a transitional capacity, because I wasn't going to fight this in the hallway. I was going to fight it in the fine print. It started with a post-it note, stuck to the top of a quarterly review form like a school detention slip. Handwritten in purple ink. Let's circle back, some growth areas to discuss. The damn smiley face made it worse. I peeled it off like it was covered in anthrax. and read the document underneath. Apparently, I'd developed a pattern of disengagement. I was frequently late to virtual meetings. I wasn't openly resistant to new initiatives. Translation. I asked what Tyler's metrics were and displayed a lack of enthusiasm during collaborative sessions. Enthusiasm. I'd shown up to every one of those meetings, while this place actively erased me from its memory like I was a glitch in the matrix. Next came the coaching plan. 3 pages of bureaucratic theater. It read like a breakup letter written by a committee of cowards. Elizabeth will strive to approach change with curiosity and positivity. What the hell did that even mean? Was I supposed to throw confetti every time Chase fired someone and replace them with his college roommate's cousin? The bullet points got worse. Observed working independently without seeking team alignment. No shit, I work in operations, not summer camp. Does not consistently contribute in Slack channels. Yeah, because I'm busy keeping your back end from collapsing like a Jenga tower in a wind tunnel. They wanted me to sign it. I didn't. I just smiled, took a second copy, and walked out of the HR office with the eerie calm of a woman who already knew the end of the story. Back at my desk, I did what I always do when things start to feel rigged. I documented. Every line of the coaching plan went under a yellow highlighter. I printed timestamps from Zoom logs proving I joined meetings on time. I pulled backup emails showing project approvals they were now pretending never happened. And I started compiling a timeline, quiet, methodical postmortem while the body was still warm. Then I mailed it. Certified envelope. Return receipt requested. Addressed to my personal employment attorney, Susan Harlow-esque, a woman whose voice could freeze lava and whose default facial expression could curdle dairy. We'd met 10 years ago after a different job tried to pull a similar stunt. Back then, I didn't have the leverage. This time, I had a contract, a clause, a paper trail so clean it could pass FDA inspection. I didn't tell anyone in the office. Didn't need to, but I did text Susan. Need you to confirm the timelines on Section 8B and the arbitration windows. Sent you a packet. She responded within 10 minutes, received. This one's going to be fun. That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving since the pandemic began. I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. There was something quietly satisfying about being ahead of the game for once. I'd been blindsided in the past by sudden layoffs, gaslighting managers, entire departments getting dissolved over lunch. But this time, I wasn't in the dark. HR kept pushing. Passive-aggressive emails, quick check-ins, subtle threats masked as faux concern. One message read, just a friendly reminder that cooperation is a core company value. Let's work together to avoid any unnecessary escalations. You'd think I'd sent a horse head to Chase's office. All I'd done was ask for clarification on what disengagement meant in measurable terms. Meanwhile, the coaching plan's milestones became more absurd. Submit weekly reflections on adaptive mindset growth. What am I, a 6th grader at summer camp? I didn't fight it. I submitted the reflections. All of them. Each one a beautifully hollow exercise in corporate survival. This week I learned that listening is as important as speaking. Change is not always comfortable, but growth rarely is. I filled them with such weaponized vagueness they could have been fortune cookie inserts. All the while I watched, observed, cataloged. Noticed how Dana from HR flinched every time Chase joined a call. Noticed how 2 other senior staffers, both over 40, both women, had suddenly disappeared from the org chart. No goodbye emails, no LinkedIn announcements, just gone. I added their names to my timeline. They thought I was passive, quiet, a relic. What they didn't know is that quiet doesn't mean weak. It means watchful. And watchful women make excellent historians. By the end of the week, I had every interaction logged, every accusation countered, every attempt to push me out recorded in a nice, tidy file folder labeled pre-arbitration evidence. And still, I said nothing. I smiled during Zoom meetings. I applauded Tyler's idiotic roadmap updates. I gave feedback when asked, always constructive, always collaborative. And I waited, not for revenge, for the exact right moment to flip the switch. They called it an urgent compliance meeting. No agenda, no prep. Just a ping from Dana with the subject line 10 a.m. required attendance dropped on my calendar like a landmine. The kind of meeting that smells like smoke before you even open the door. It was already waiting when I stepped into conference room B, the manila folder on the table, thick with accusation. The VP, Chase, sat at the head like a judge at a rigged talent show, hands folded, Rolex glinting in the fluorescence. Dana sat beside him, eyes already flickering with apology or fear. The HR director, someone I barely knew beyond her LinkedIn headshot and overuse of the phrase in alignment, sat directly across from me, smiling the way a dentist does before they drill without Novocaine. They didn't waste time. Elizabeth, the director, began, her voice smooth and corporate sweet. We've received a report of inappropriate conduct during company hours. She slid the folder across the table. Inside, a photo, black and white, printed from a grainy security camera feed, showed me in the break room holding a sheaf of printed documents. Legal-sized, highlighted, clearly not marketing reports or Q3 metrics. I recognized them immediately. They were my contract clauses, my notes, my annotated, highlighter-stained copy of the termination provisions. The same ones I'd been reading while pretending to sip that awful K-cup coffee. I didn't flinch. Dana cleared her throat. These materials, they aren't work-related. Consider this misuse of company time and resources. Chase leaned in, trying to drip authority like bad cologne. It's also a concerning signal, Elizabeth. You're actively reading legal documents during work hours. That's not curiosity. That's an act of defiance. He said defiance like it was a felony, like I'd smuggled state secrets out in a Tupperware. I looked at the photo again. That frozen moment, my head tilted, pen in hand. It didn't scream rebellion, it screamed preparation. And maybe that's what terrified them most. I closed the folder slowly, set it aside. Guilty, I said with a shrug. Dana blinked. Sorry, what? I said I'm guilty. I read legal documents on my break. I printed them on my own time. I brought them from home. But sure, let's call it what you want, defiance. Chase sat back in his chair, surprised. He was hoping for denial, for begging. Maybe a teary apology, something to put in the non-compliant employee file and justify whatever severance-less firing they'd cooked up. What he got instead was calm. Collected. Me, unbothered. Are you admitting to misconduct? The HR director asked, pen poised like she was about to win a spelling bee. I'm admitting to knowing my rights. Silence. Chase's jaw twitched. This could escalate, Elizabeth. Already has, I said. You just didn't feel it yet. And with that, I stood, picked up my phone, walked out without being dismissed. The hallway outside felt too bright, too loud. My hands shook slightly, but not from fear. It was adrenaline, that high-wire moment before a fall or a fight, except I wasn't falling. I was landing. Back at my desk, I opened my personal email. Drafted one line to Susan, subject line, go time. Body, meeting happened. Photo presented. Escalation threat made. Confirm arbitration clock starts now. Proceed with section 4B. Hit send. Then I logged into our document management system and quietly downloaded a copy of the coaching plan they'd shoved at me the week before. Highlighted the word constructive where they'd written it 5 times in pink font like a toddler's diary. And then I waited, not for HR, for Susan's response, which came 5 minutes later, initiated. Legal contact made. All communications now formal. Respond to anything unless we approve it. I smiled. Chase wanted a power move. He got a legal process. Cold, boring, relentless. The kind of thing he couldn't charm, bluff, or threaten his way out of. He wanted to punish me for being smart. Turns out, smart comes with receipts. The voluntary separation agreement landed in my inbox at 7:04 a.m. on a Saturday. No subject line fluff, no smiley faces this time, just a cold PDF with the file name, Exit Package EJ Review PDF. I stared at it with the same expression I reserve for moldy leftovers in the office fridge, half disgust, half curiosity. I opened it, 2 pages long. No mention of severance. No mention of arbitration. Just a neat little paragraph stating that, in exchange for my signature, the company would release all parties from further obligation, even offered to let me keep my laptop as a courtesy. As if the crusty ThinkPad they never upgraded was a consolation prize instead of a glorified space heater with a keyboard. The email itself came from Dana, the HR rep, timestamped at 6:52 a.m., meaning she'd either lost sleep over it or legal had started pulling strings while the rest of the world was still brewing coffee. Either way, it confirmed what I already knew. They were scrambling. I didn't reply. I didn't scream. I didn't forward it to Susan just yet. First, I opened a new spreadsheet, titled it Escalation Timeline VP Era, because if they wanted to play pattern of behavior, they were about to get one, with timestamps, witnesses, and cross-referenced documentation. Line by line, I logged everything. Week 1, VP Chase arrives. Schedules one-on-one. Calls my team dead weight in casual conversation. 3, reassigns Tyler to my flagship project without notice. Week 5, coaching plan initiated based on attitude concerns. Week 7, accused of reading legal documents. Breakroom photo presented. Week 8, voluntary exit offered with no severance. I backed each event with files, screenshots, and Slack transcripts. Even casual things, like when Chase said during a meeting, sometimes dinosaurs have to die for mammals to evolve. Everyone laughed. I didn't because I was the dinosaur, and I had just started growing teeth. Then came the flashback. Back in 2011, I'd sat across from a younger HR director at this very company, negotiating the terms of my hire. After getting burned at my last job, ghosted during a merger, no payout, no recourse, I'd come prepared. I insisted on a clause that most people skipped past in the boilerplate. Tucked beneath the termination without cause header, I'd written it in myself. In the event the employee is removed without demonstrable cause and is subjected to adverse workplace action without formal remediation, a structured arbitration process shall commence. Delays beyond the review window of 10 business days will trigger per diem penalties at 1.25x the employee's average weekly gross. Legal had grumbled. HR had pushed back. But I'd held firm. And now that clause was live. Just didn't know it yet. I reviewed the calendar. It had been 9 business days since the first formal accusation. That meant one more day before the penalty meter started ticking, and Susan already had the timer running. I forwarded the voluntary separation agreement to her with a single line: decline, proceed per contract terms, activate Section 4B arbitration. Her reply came back, confirmed, demand sent. Her official arbitration letter will be hand-delivered to corporate HQ Monday by noon. Clock starts at delivery. They'll blink first. It didn't feel like victory, not yet, but it felt like momentum. Like every inch they tried to push me out became another inch of legal traction under my boots. Later that day, Chase sent a Slack message to the full department channel, excited for new chapters and adaptive growth. Change is never easy, neither is staying stagnant. Appreciate everyone's flexibility in the weeks ahead. I didn't react, but I copied the message into my spreadsheet, labeled it Attempt to Preempt Employee Exits via Group Narrative. They weren't writing me out of the story. I was writing the ending now, and every passive-aggressive memo, every whispered insult, every clumsy cover-up attempt became evidence. Paper trail, ammunition. Because the beauty of a paper trap is this: by the time your enemy realizes they're inside it, it's already closed. It happened on a Wednesday. Mid-morning, just after the standing meeting where Chase declared, without irony, that transparency is our new KPI. I was walking back to my desk, coffee in one hand, email on the other, when I noticed someone trailing just a little too close. I turned. It was Jules. She was one of the newer HR associates, maybe 25, always moving like someone was trying to catch her doing something wrong. Sharp, polite, perpetually wide-eyed like she'd just seen her first corporate cover-up, which honestly she probably had. "Hey," she whispered, glancing both ways like we were in a spy movie. "Do you have a second?" I nodded. We ducked into the side hallway by the maintenance closet where the motion detector lights flicker and the Wi-Fi dies. She leaned in, kept her voice low. "Checked your file," she said, "your contract. The clause, it's real, and it's active." I didn't blink. "They're panicking," she added. "Like real panic. Dana's been in 3 closed-door calls with legal this morning. Chase tried to get your personnel record redacted. Compliance said no. I probably shouldn't be telling you this." "You didn't," I said. "This conversation never happened." She nodded. "Just be careful. They're saying you lawyered up." I did. Her eyes widened. I turned and walked away before she could ask more. Back to my desk, back to calm. Except it wasn't calm anymore, not for them. By lunch, the shift in the air was undeniable. Slack channels fell quiet. Meetings were canceled. I saw Chase pacing on the balcony through the glass conference wall, gesturing like a man trying to swat invisible flies. Dana sat at her desk, rigid as a corpse in a chair, tapping a pen that never touched paper. Cherry on top came at 2:17 p.m., an emergency all-hands meeting invite. No agenda, no subject, just required. Everyone joined, of course. Cameras on per Chase's standing order. Mine stayed off. I didn't bother explaining, I just watched. Chase entered the call late. Hair a little less perfect, jaw clenched so tight I could hear it crack through the mic. I want to address some recent concerns, he began. There's been a lot of noise. Rumors, legal complications. Let me be clear, we're a team, loyalty matters. His voice cracked slightly on that last part. Then he leaned forward and the mask dropped. And if you're more focused on loopholes and legalese than actually working, he sneered, maybe this isn't the place for you. We build things here, we move, we don't hide behind paper. Paper. He said it like a curse word. Any questions? He asked, eyes scanning the grid of faces. Silence. I sat still, camera off, sipping my coffee like it was the blood of my enemies. That's the thing about people like Chase. They think yelling makes them powerful. But real power is quiet. Quiet like arbitration clauses. Quiet like penalty fees that tick up by the hour. Quiet like the sound of legal calling your lawyer with questions. Which is exactly what happened next. At 3:41 p.m., Susan forwarded me a message from the company's outside counsel. Polite, brief, begging for clarity. We'd like to better understand the scope of your client's expectations under Section 4B, particularly as it pertains to procedural delays and potential financial liability. We are seeking amicable resolution options. Translation, they'd stepped in it, hard, and now they wanted to put the lid back on without triggering the landmines. Susan's reply was equally surgical. My client's expectations are simple. Follow the contract. All of it. She attached the daily penalty clause. Added a spreadsheet I'd built for her tracking the delays. It was already into six-figure territory, and they knew it. After the call, Chase didn't speak to me, didn't ping, didn't look. He just disappeared, first from Slack, then from the office. Rumor was he had a personal emergency. Another said he was working remote indefinitely. I didn't care. I wasn't watching him anymore. I was watching the countdown. Arbitration clock ticking. Emails archiving. HR flailing. Because I hadn't just read the paper. I was the paper now. It dropped like a brick in my inbox, subject line, notice of termination performance-based review findings. No warning, no call, no human voice behind it. Just a 6-paragraph PDF stuffed with euphemisms, the corporate poetry of cowardice. Despite our efforts to support your transition, misalignment with core values, ongoing resistance to feedback culture. Jesus. No severance package, no appeal path. Just a line at the bottom that read, your access to company systems will be removed by 5:00 p.m. today. And just like that, they thought they'd buried me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even lean back in my chair. I clicked print. Moment the paper spat out of my dusty office printer, I walked it over to my kitchen counter, where Susan's prepared arbitration demand sat waiting in a FedEx envelope. I slid the termination notice into the packet like the final piece of a puzzle. Section 4B, line 17 of my contract. In the event of a termination without cause, under the guise of fabricated performance concerns, the attempt to bypass severance obligations shall immediately trigger binding arbitration, preceded by financial penalties commensurate with the employee's average annual compensation, multiplied by factor 2.5, assessed per calendar day of noncompliance. I signed my name across the dotted line of the demand with a smooth stroke. No shaking, no hesitation, righteous detachment. That's what it felt like watching a building you once loved be demolished, knowing you already took out insurance on it before the bulldozers arrived. At 11:43 a.m., Susan emailed the formal arbitration notice directly to their legal team, with a timestamp, with a read receipt, with the penalty clause copy-pasted in bold 14-point font. The cost, $126,440 per day. Tick. By 1:06 p.m., HR vanished. I mean, vanished. No Slack pings. No follow-ups. No sorry to hear you're leaving from Dana. Just silence, like someone pulled the fire alarm in their department and forgot to reset it. The HR director's LinkedIn activity, previously a stream of cheerful posts about corporate empathy, went dark. Her out-of-office auto-reply was activated 2 days early. By 2:00 p.m., legal took over. A curt email from an external law firm popped into Susan's inbox. Subject line, in regards to arbitration filing. They wanted to discuss a mutually beneficial resolution path. They attached a spreadsheet of internal severance frameworks and asked for a call at your earliest availability. Which meant, we know we're screwed. How much will it cost to stop the bleeding? Susan didn't call them back. She waited. Because here's the thing, we weren't bluffing. The clause was real. The paperwork was real. The coaching plan they forged, the Slack threats, repackaged project work they tried to erase, all of it was documented, timestamped, and safely stored in 3 separate encrypted locations. I even had voice memos from hallway conversations, ones where Chase called me legacy, dead weight to Jules while laughing. Jules had sent them to me quietly, unprompted. She's probably getting out too. At 4:22 p.m., I received my final company system access email. Your credentials will expire in 30 minutes. I screenshotted it, not because I needed it, because every ending deserves a record. Then I shut the laptop, walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of Pinot, sat in silence. I wasn't thinking about the money, not yet. I was thinking about how calm it felt to finally not owe a damn thing to a company that pretended I was invisible until the moment I became a liability. They thought they could break me with paperwork. Turns out they just built my case for me. And the meter, it had already passed $250,000. Tick. The silence hit like a blackout. One day I was a problem they were trying to scrub out of the system. The next, it was as if I'd never existed at all. No retaliation. No legal threats, no more coaching plans, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't bring peace, just tension, like the moment before a dam breaks. Leadership ghosted. Chase stopped posting on Slack, stopped showing up on Zoom. HR deactivated my employee profile, but not before I caught one last glimpse of my internal HR file, red flagged and marked, do not engage, legal sensitive. Jules told me Dana called in sick 3 days straight. Someone whispered the CFO had canceled his Aspen trip. But the loudest noise came at 2:14 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A single email from an unfamiliar address. Subject, processing notice financial resolution body. Miss Jensen, your documentation is being finalized. You can expect official processing confirmation before noon. We apologize for the delay. T. Whitaker, Office of the CFO, no flair. No signature quote about values or resilience. Just the tone of someone who'd been told to handle this now before things got worse. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, in the dark, heart doing that weird fast, slow stutter it does when your body doesn't know whether to panic or celebrate. I didn't cry, but I did laugh just once. A hollow, tired sound. Not because I was happy, because it had worked, not the fight. The planning, every scanned document, every archived email, every clause I'd refused to let them edit out a decade ago. All of it had built to this exact moment. Not a courtroom scene, not a dramatic confrontation in a glass conference room. Just leverage used precisely. By 11:47 a.m., I logged into my bank account, and there it was, $840,000, labeled as a one-time confidential employment settlement. No apology, no memo, just numbers. The kind of numbers that don't change your soul, but sure as hell make walking away a lot easier. I stared at the screen for a full minute, not blinking, not breathing. Then I exhaled. Finally, like I'd been underwater for months and my lungs had just remembered how to function. The legal memo Susan forwarded me a few minutes later was marked confidential. High-risk precedent. 4 pages of carefully phrased legalese confirming arbitration had been avoided in the interest of reputational integrity. There were references to similar cases being buried. a line about exceptions granted due to legacy contract structures, and a final footnote: no admission of wrongdoing is implied or acknowledged. Of course not. That would have required integrity or shame or both. I didn't need them to say sorry. The payout was the apology. And the silence was the sound of power shifting. Chase walked into the office Monday morning with the swagger of a man who still thought he'd won. Fresh blazer, reusable latte cup, sunglasses tucked into his shirt collar like a smug punctuation mark. Except this time, the usual greetings didn't follow. No good morning from the receptionist. No fake laughter from the sales pod. Just a thick, woolly quiet. The kind that creeps in after a storm, but before you realize the roof's gone. Smile faltered when he hit the war room and found it empty. Not figuratively, literally. Half the chairs were missing. The whiteboard had been wiped clean. A sticky note clung to the glass with just one word scribbled across it in black ink: transitioning. He spun around and marched down the hall to check on the product team. Gone. Tyler's desk, cleared. Julia's chair, vacant. The new guy from strategy left his badge and a one-word exit memo: nope. 'Cause here's what happens when you rip out the spine of a department and try to replace it with ego and LinkedIn buzzwords. Things stop standing up. I told exactly no one I was leaving. I didn't send a farewell email. I didn't post a nostalgic LinkedIn essay with a soft focus selfie and a paragraph about growth. I walked out Friday at 5:04 p.m. with a small cardboard box, my contract in one hand and my dignity in the other. Only thing I left behind was a locked drawer in my old cubicle. On the front, a label maker tag that read past due ethics. Chase tried to open it, couldn't. Send a ticket to facilities. They said that desk's been reassigned. When he asked who approved that, no one answered. Dana was on leave, the HR director, suddenly consulting externally. And Jules, the junior rep, walked past him that morning with her head high for the first time in weeks. She didn't say a word, but she smiled. That tight, knowing revenge has an aftertaste kind of smile. Then came the email. It hit every C-level inbox like a siren. Subject: external audit request for full severance records review. Sent from a third-party labor law firm, CC'd to an address labeled compliance review at federalaberwatch.org. Attached, a letter stating that a former employee's legal proceedings had triggered a broader compliance query. We're reviewing all employment separation agreements over the last 7 years. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person they'd quietly pushed out, bought off, or shoved into early retirement. The ones who didn't fight. The ones who didn't know how. The ones who never thought they could. And now, thanks to that dusty little clause they overlooked, the board was about to find out what silence really cost. Say HR started deleting internal chat logs that afternoon. Someone in legal resigned to pursue other opportunities. The CFO stopped answering external calls altogether. And Chase, he kept showing up for a while, until that meeting invite from the external audit team popped up in his calendar. No agenda, no RSVP link, just one word in the subject line: accountability. By then, it didn't matter. I was gone. Not a trace in the system, not a photo on the wall, not even a company mug left behind. Just that locked drawer, that label, and the empty chair no one wanted to sit in, and maybe a memory of someone they thought was soft, quiet, forgettable. Turns out, quiet just meant I didn't waste breath on warnings. 12 hours. That's all it took. And I never raised my voice. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.